Hi, I'm Dr. Matthew Norton, the founder of People Plus Purpose, and this is the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. And today, my guest is Holland Haiis, a nationally recognized business and workplace strategist who helps DSOs, private practice dentists, and their teams to develop and grow their practices by integrating the science of dentistry with the science of leadership to create greater workplace performance. Holland is an award-winning author who was named one of 100 global thought leaders for her work on conscious leadership and burnout prevention, and she is also a member of the advisory board of Cloud Dentistry. Welcome to the podcast, Holland.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew. It's so nice to be here with you.
Well, it is my distinct pleasure. And I love your whole look today. We were talking about that. I love the yellow color and just very perfect.
Well, you'll learn about me, and those who are out there who see this who already know me. I love color. Color really is important to me, and I'm usually on stage in color. It's very rare you'll find me in black. So if I'm in black, there's probably a funeral nearby. It's like
that you just happen to be heading to, right?
yeah, that I just happen to be crashing or something.
Uh, well, just with a little bit of what I shared in your bio, I mean, certainly for those who know you, but for those who don't know you, I mean, you've been in the world of leadership development for some time now. And you really have a broad array of accomplishments and a diverse background, really, that you kind of bring to this moment, I think. So maybe you can tell us just a little bit about how you ended up in dentistry in general and kind of what you're bringing to this people side of dentistry.
Sure. So, again, let's go back a little bit in time where I was transitioning physicians out of hospitals into private practice. And as I worked with them, as I worked with their teams, as I became outsourced what would be a chief people officer and learning and development person and doing some even COO for them and having many clients, what came to pass was every single physician I was working with, regardless of the specialty, had a cousin, brother, uncle, father who were dentists. And they all said, you have to meet Holland. And so that really was my foray into dentistry. And then from there, my joke became, gosh, every dentist seems to know someone in insurance. Of course, we all need insurance. And so then I was introduced into the insurance industry, and insurance knew financial advisors. And so I'm really industry agnostic. And there was a time that the majority of my consulting practice had physicians and dentists. And then with ebb and flow, it changed like everything in our lives. And then in the last several years, it's been, the wave has been coming back in this direction.
So I guess I'm curious as to, since this is kind of where you're landing currently, maybe what's one thing that you specifically love about working with the people in dentistry?
What I love about healthcare in general and dentistry is we are changing people's lives in a very different way that other industries are not necessarily doing. When we consider someone's face and their body, and what is the first thing that we see when someone walks into a room, we see a face, and then we immediately gravitate towards that person based on their smile.
Mm.
And if we don't have the confidence to smile,
Mm.
if we feel there is something wrong with our smile, if we are missing teeth, if our teeth have been damaged from childhood trauma, from falls, I have a very good friend who had a lot of work done. Her teeth had turned green from so many medications as a child. And so she's got beautiful teeth now. But again, when we had that conversation, and she said, I didn't smile for years. And so when we think about not being able to smile at someone and what a smile transmits to another human and how it is embracing, and we want to have a conversation with that person, we are immediately drawn to them. I am passionate about supporting dentists and the dental industry because they are passionate about changing people's smiles where they can walk into a room and have confidence and share who they are and their authenticity.
That's great. I love that. That sounds like a very worthy purpose. And since my company is people plus purpose, then I feel like I can recognize that and acknowledge that in you. So very, very nice. So dental healthcare practice workplaces, I mean, maybe workplaces even more broadly, but uh, how do you see the culture in the workplace impacting the retention in the practice? Maybe also, well, let's start there. Talk to me about the relationship between culture and retention.
Well, right now, the biggest challenge we have with culture and retention, and they go hand in hand, is we have highly stressed teams, we have highly stressed dentists. And when we are coming from a place of working from being highly stressed consistently, and what that does to our brain chemistry and how that changes whether we are reactionary
Mhm.
versus proactive, whether we are screaming and yelling versus whether we take a moment, step back, reflect, can think, whether we are sharing goals and the plan with our team, or we are trying to do it all ourselves. And that tends to be a common thread that I find with many of the dentists and DSOs that I work with, is where do they relinquish control? And many of us, it's not only the feeling that someone can't do it as well as us. In dentistry, there is the concern of, might there be a lawsuit? So having your hand in the pot in too many places really, it's like fine wine. If you keep adding water, adding water, we really have something that's not so great anymore. And we're distilling it down to not having the same effect that we want it to have. So we want to keep our dentists, we want to keep them moving and running where their brains are. I like to say it's high octane. They are not filled with stress. As we know, burnout and preventing suicide for dentists is a huge component here. I am a stress master. That is part of my certification, and I have a background in behavioral and positive psychology, went to school for that. And so again, all of this feeds together. And so when we have dentists who are willing to take a step back and realize they're burned out, realize they're not good with giving autonomy, realize that there are some challenges and issues that they do not have the answers for because their strength is clinical
Mhm.
versus the science of leadership and people.
Right.
Those are the folks I love to work with, and those are the dentists who are going to really thrive, not just survive, because they start to see that culture is off. I'm not retaining my people. They can't quite figure out the challenge. And again, stress and burnout is a big one today.
So if when you meet, I mean, and we're in one accord on so many, everything you just said there. So um, when you meet new doctors, new teams, what are some of the things from a symptomatic perspective that you see? And maybe you can connect the dots a little bit between those, the culture breaking, the stress elevating, and that continuum on to burnout. And what does burnout look and feel like?
Yeah. So when we address the first part of what you're asking, first of all, when we step into a practice, we want to make sure that we have the right people in the right place. And so, corporate America has been creating org charts forever,
Mhm.
right? When I work with, again, on the corporate side of the world, I run assessments on people. I want to make sure we have the right people in the right seats, so to speak. Well, it is very similar in dentistry. It is very, very different. If we have a TC who has issues and a mindset around lack, who doesn't feel confident to ask people for money, who doesn't feel good about asking for a large sum of money. I have someone right now who needs to buy a new vehicle. It's priced at $22,000 and a full arch is 25. So you can see the disconnect in this person's brain to sit down with another human being and say, okay, teeth, versus I could actually get a vehicle, an automobile for less, and my 16-year-old will be able to use it. I will be able to get to work, easier. I'll be more dependable. So we've got to get around some mindset challenges and some mindset issues. And part of that is making sure by doing assessments, we have the right people doing the right things. We also want to look at performance, because when we have our high performers, what we tend to do is we know and we watch how great they are. What happens though, Dr. Matthew, is we end up taking those folks, and then if they have 10 minutes free or 30 minutes free, or a patient has canceled, we plug them into doing some other things that starts to disconnect them from the practice and frustrate them. So really having a clear understanding who's doing what, why, right? What is our purpose to having Holland do what it is that she does? What is our purpose to having Rebecca do what she does and Nicole do what she does? What's the purpose behind that? So we need to get really, really clear and understand, delineate, and define who is doing what. When we haven't outlined that, this is where we start to get into some challenges, because then we have front and back office. Front office doesn't think it's their responsibility or their job. Back office doesn't think it's their responsibility or their job. Something gets dropped, something doesn't get done, the bickering continues, or as I like to say, the drama, right? It increases, it becomes our daily soap opera. Right. And we know that the brain can buy into that very quickly with negativity bias. And, it's like a horse race and we're on. Right. And so again, really looking at that, but clearly defining who's doing what and the value of why they're doing it helps to really start to change some of these interpersonal dynamics. Right. When we aren't doing that, we're continuing to level up the stress day in and day out. Now we have less people coming to work, more people calling out, the retention wheel is going around and round. And the reason burnout starts to happen is burnout starts to happen when I know that I've got to cover Saturdays indefinitely, when I used to be twice a month. Right. And now I'm every Saturday, which changes the dynamic of my family time. It changes the dynamic of my downtime, my recharge time, my self-time. All of that starts to change. And what tends to happen is our dentists are so busy that they're not always connecting this dot. And they're thinking, well, Holland is happy to work every Saturday. She's making more money. Not necessarily true. Yeah. And this is why cloud is such a great part of every dental practice, having a backup plan until you get that next employee in the seat. Your backup plan becomes cloud dentistry, because they are able to support you and help you. And again, I don't know if the listeners and those watching, if you are familiar, you can put in how much you want to spend, how far of a radius do you want somebody from 10 miles away, 5 miles away, 25 miles away, how many days do you need them? And you can just put all of that data into the system, and then it will populate what your choices are. You can see pictures, you can look at a resume, there are badges, and this really becomes something where all of the stress and strain gets taken away, not only from the doctor. I always say to my doctors, you're taking the stress and strain away from your team, because the team knows, hey, Dr. Matthew's got my back. Right. And it's not perfect. Right. Maybe 8 out of 10, we're able to find someone that fills in. And those other 2 times, I'm really happy to pitch in, because I know Dr. Matthew's got my back no matter what.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I think that so much people want, as part of a team, people want to be seen and recognized and appreciated, right, for what their strengths are. So I agree with you in all of what you were saying there. And I think that piece of what strengths do we uniquely bring, which is where assessments can really come in to see who are you and what do you most naturally bring to the occasion. And so that people, and even between team members, so they can understand that better, so that they can understand each other more, that they can know how to communicate more effectively with people who are inherently speaking somewhat different languages than them. And now we can collaborate. And I've been using, kind of coming back to sports analogies lately, more like on a sports team, you would never have a winning team where each team member did not know absolutely clearly the strengths of the other people on that team, and where they would have practiced over and over, highlighting and drawing out and feeding the ball to each other relative to those strengths, whether we're talking World Cup going on right now or football, basketball. You would never do that. But a lot of times in business, we're missing those pieces and figuring somehow intuitively we're going to pull this off.
To your point, let's talk about, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. I mean, the entire world, I think, knows who they are at this point. Right, so it's a great segue to add on to your sports analogy. With any football team, they don't solely and exclusively share the weekly playbook of what the runs and the plays will be only with the quarterback. And then everybody's just got to hope for the best and watch where the ball is going. Right. Every single week, they come together as a team. They review the playbook. They change the playbook. And so really what that translates to in dentistry is our goals. And really what happens is very rarely do I step into any DSO or practice where dentists are sharing what the goals are. They're either making the assumption that everybody knows we want more patients. That's not really a very concrete goal. We want more patients. More patients to Holland, maybe 3. More patients to Dr. Matthew, maybe 3 a day. Right, 6 days a week. That's a huge gap and misunderstanding. So when we pull the team together and we share the playbook as we want to write it and change it together as a team, and then we have an opportunity when the doctor says, this is what the goal is. If the entire team goes, oh, right there, we know that might be a little too lofty to begin with. Let's have part 2, right? To help keep our stress levels at low. Let's discuss, hey, why does that seem so hard? Share with me why that seems maybe even impossible. Well, here's what's happened here, and this is what's going on there. And, we have so many cases that we haven't closed, and we feel behind there. And if we could close those cases, and then the doctor could say, that's a really good point. Let's talk about case acceptance. Let's talk about where we can do better. I love that as a team, you figured that out. That's great. You're right. That would close some of the gap where it's not necessarily a new patient, it's someone coming back, that case acceptance. Now let's have a conversation. What do we need to do better? What can we do differently? And we all start pulling together as a team, and it's not a blame and a shame. Right. It's really about co-creation and collaboration at the highest level.
Yeah, I like that. Communication. I mean, so many of these things that we're talking about come down to most of us have not learned enough, practiced enough to master communication. And one other thought with what you were saying there is framing things in a way that speaks to those unique, different people too, in terms of what are their inspirational drivers. Because sometimes people are not motivated by the same thing that maybe I, as the owner, might be motivated by. And I'm speaking the language of profitability and production. And that's not mostly what they think they're there for or feel like they're there for, right? So that, I think there's a way that we can keep customizing those communications even better.
Well, and it's also about, I may be driven by more money. More money may be valuable to me because I'm saving for a house.
Right.
And it's going to be the first house that my husband and I are buying, or my partner and I, or maybe I'm buying it alone. I'm a single mom, and I'm really excited about any opportunity to earn more money. I may have a coworker who is in a different financial phase of life, who is in a different financial place with their numbers and potentially maybe home ownership, a big purchase.
Mm-hmm.
And so money is less of a driver
Right.
to one of my team members.
Right. Yeah.
And so this is also something that we have to understand, and we can't understand that until we do some of the deep work together. I
Mm-hmm.
just a couple of weeks ago, I was down with the Pathways and Affordable team, and so the leadership team, we did a leadership retreat down in Nashville, and really looking at those whys and really defining some of those goals and really doing some of the values and really doing some of the hard work that we don't know how to do unless we have a guide to do it. And actually, one of the doctors had written that how much value this had, because what dentists and their teams receive a lot of is clinical, clinical, clinical. And what they don't receive are these softer skills of how do we resolve conflict?
Right.
How do we give and receive feedback in a way that keeps us happy and aligned and open to these tough conversations, as opposed to having meltdowns, creating a disconnect and a huge chasm of where I don't want to talk to you now for a week, and I'm going to gossip and I'm going to ignore you as we pass in the hallway and pretend I don't see you.
Right.
And so that again starts to break down the fiber
Right.
of culture and the fiber of human connection
Mm-hmm.
when some of that happens. And so when we do this work, and when we have practices who are willing to say, I don't know how to do this people stuff because we didn't learn it in school. I did because that's what I specialized in
Right. Right.
when I went off to college and got
Right.
those degrees, and then
Right.
have continued to get those certifications and really understand human dynamics, human behavior, neuroscience, and all of that that lets us unlock what's happening in brains so we can drive through that tunnel faster, quicker, and get to the light of supporting our people and keeping our office profitable and increasing the profits, and again, increasing the quality of care for our patients and customer service for our patients, and the happiness that is experienced, and mental health and well-being for our employees as they come to work each day.
So we could actually enjoy and be engaged during a good bulk of our day in the workplace. Is that part of what you're saying, Holland?
That is 100% what I'm
I
saying.
love that.
And again, working with a lot of teams to do this, and we have to remember, when we're consistently in that space of putting out fires due to retention, due to burnout, then what happens is it's really hard to relax our nervous systems to enjoy anything. And then what we tend to do is we tend to reach for more caffeine. If we're a smoker, more nicotine, sugar. And then what all of that is doing to our brains and our gut, while we're trying to calm ourselves down during the day, and we're actually hyping ourselves up and making ourselves even more reactionary.
Right. While we're working in a healthcare business.
Exactly. So here we are spending the bulk of our day giving quality healthcare and solutions to our patients. And what it often happens is we forget that we need quality of life, quality of workplace, quality of culture, quality of mental health and well-being, that is really what every human being needs. And when they have that on Sunday night, they go, oh, I can't wait for Monday to see my buddies in the office. And oh, one of my favorite patients is coming in. Oh, I love him or her so much. It's always so, oh, and I can't wait to see what we've done and the implants. Oh, I'm so excited, as opposed to the Sunday scaries.
Right.
That where it's, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. It's horrible. And all we do is go, well, it's Monday, only 4 more days left. It's Tuesday, only 3 more days left. And the moment I hear any of that in an office, I know immediately what the culture, the temperature of the culture is, and it's not good.
No, not good. So maybe that's a good segue into, I have one more question for you. As far as continuing education and personal development. I mean, really, we're talking so much about personal development, these soft skills, these human skills, really. Um, how can both of those help enhance the clinical skills and address the psychological well-being and job satisfaction of the clinicians, but everybody in the office? So how do those connect? And which is maybe partly how do we take some of these things that we're talking about and turn them into kind of a developmental process, maybe?
Yeah. So when we think of these skills, and again, we go back to what is wonderful about dentistry is there are a lot of opportunities to level up your clinical skills. As I like to say, you can be the best clinician in the world. You can have people around the block waiting to get in the door. You can have a 2-year waiting list. If you don't have people in your office to support those great clinical skills, it doesn't really matter. It's like game over. So we need to start understanding that what drives profits are people.
Right.
People drive your profits, because the moment when your front desk doesn't show up for work, we all know what a catastrophe that day is and how hard it is to get through that day. So when we don't have people, we don't have profits that are increasing, and very often they're decreasing. And so what we want to consider is we want to consider some short-term and some quick solutions, which is why I offer offsites and retreats. And these offsites and retreats can be done in a specific location outside of your office. I have even done these inside of an office as well, in a larger, if we have a more of a community room or something like that, we can do some of it inside and outside. We can go to a restaurant, we can have a room in a hotel, one of the smaller conference rooms. So there are ways to do this that match everyone's budget. And what that does is it brings people together to start closing those gaps and those areas of disconnect and discontent that is shifting and changing your culture, not for the good,
Right.
within a practice. So we can start to close that gap a little bit on a short-term solution. And then there are those longer-term solutions, because no one learns in a day or a day and a half or even a half day how to resolve conflict quickly.
Right.
Or how to better clearly communicate. This is a longer term. And so, right, we set that foundation and then we build. And so I work with teams on Zoom. I work with teams in person. There are some groups that I fly in quarterly and will be there for a couple of days and can support and coach some members of the team privately, some together at lunch, where we are working on a common goal. So whether it's looking at goal setting, whether it's values, whether it's conversation, whether it's resolving conflict, we take it, it's a bite-sized piece at a time, because that's going to help us to learn in a better way. And then it's the practice and repetition. And this is how we build this part of our people. Again, adding the people science to the dental science, which then allows the two to come together. And now when a patient is grumpy or a patient is resistant, we've got those tools. We're able to draw them back in instead of being a repellent ourselves.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So for everybody who is excited now after hearing you share all that, after this great conversation, and they want to know more, what's the best way for people to connect with you, to find out how to grab a hold of any of these possibilities?
Sure. So thank you. So if you are watching as opposed to listening, you'll see my name. Oh, it's over on this side.
Right.
So that's Holland Haiis, Holland, just like the country. Last name Haii. Those are 2 I's S. I like to say double L's and double I's. You can go straight to my website. It's hollandhaiis.com. If you're more comfortable reaching out on LinkedIn, feel free to go to LinkedIn. I'm there a lot as well, and I have members of my team who check that several times each day. If there's another social channel, it's easy to find me. Everything is branded under Holland Haiis, so it makes it easy to find me. And then again, through my website, you can go to the contact page and you can write down what some of your challenges are. You can share that and we can jump on a call, and I can help you to start problem solving. And again, let's increase those profits and let's increase retention for you.
Very nice, Holland. So thank you. I so appreciate your time. I very much enjoyed the conversation and love the work that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Matthew, for having me. Such an honor to be with someone of your caliber and what you are doing for the dental industry and all your contributions. So thank you for allowing me to be your guest today.
Absolutely. And thank you for those kind words. So look forward to continuing our conversation moving forward.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. This is the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. I've been with Holland Haiis, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Please subscribe if you have not done so already. We appreciate your support. Tell other people, and that allows us to have great people like Holland want to come on and join us and contribute their pearls of wisdom. So look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you.